Welcome to the SubHub podcast. I'm Danny Moreno.
And I'm MK Sullivan. And we will be doing a series of episodes this week highlighting the American women who competed at the Golden Trail World Series. It was a very successful week for Team USA over in Switzerland. And so we tried to catch up with as many of the women as possible, and hopefully you enjoy it. Our first interview is with Sophia Laukli, who, if you followed along with the Golden Trail World Series last year, you definitely know the name. She was very dominant. This year came back, had a little bit of injury, as well as maybe just not enough rest from her amazing Nordic season. And then decided to take a little bit of a break, but come back for the final.
Yeah, and she did incredible at the final, as one would suspect or expect. Sophia wasn't going to show up unless she was feeling ready. She ended up getting 4th in the prologue in a stupid fast time, as well as 6th at the final, which actually ended up giving her 13th overall, despite only having 2 regular season races going in. Sophia talks a lot about, the decision to step away from trail running this year, kind of mid-season, refreshing, what her years might look like in the upcoming years, how she's thinking about Olympic year on the near horizon, and a lot more. We had a great time catching up with Sophia. She already has so much insight about the sport and the direction it's going. But yeah, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the SubHub headlines. Follow us on Spotify or Apple. Subscribe on YouTube, and don't forget to leave us a rating.
Yes, and before we get to Sophia, here is a message from our partners.
Hey everyone, Danny here. Leading up to OCC, one of my biggest concerns was staying healthy and not getting sidelined by any sickness. After all, the last thing you want is months of training thrown out by a cold or a flu. That's where Beekeepers Naturals came in. I've been using their immune boosting products for over a year now, and they've become my secret weapon for keeping my immune system strong during tough training blocks. Honestly, they didn't just help me stay healthy, but they also took away a lot of the stress of worrying about getting sick. Their star ingredient, propolis, is packed with antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals. My personal favorite is the throat spray, but they also have lozenges, syrups, and even options for kids. So if you're looking for a natural way to support your immune system, I highly recommend giving Beekeepers Naturals a try. Use code SUBHUB20 for 20% off any and all of your orders at beekeepersnaturals.com. Now back to the episode.
Hey, Sophia, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're good.
We're good. We were just chatting about, as we told you, being similar to our moms. Maybe that'll be an episode at some point, is comparing ourselves to our parents.
That's
But
good
yeah, it's good content. But first and foremost, how are you doing? Where are you at? Just like present day status.
Yes, I am currently in Norway. I just got back from the Golden Trail finals. Made a quick trip to Switzerland, but I've honestly been like full ski mode. So based in Norway for the past few months, and now I'm back and very much like looking at snow and putting skis on soon.
Yeah, when does it start snowing in Oslo usually?
It's definitely very random, but it honestly like in the next few weeks, there's probably snow, but like a lot of the time we'll travel to places that make snow, and also is not the most like guaranteed winter. So I'm actually I'm headed to Switzerland to this like man-made loop next week, but mid-November typically.
Time to switch over.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
go.
you go.
Oh, wow. Sorry, guys. We are all over the place today. Probably
It's
because
9
I
a.m.
woke up. I just woke up. Well, first and foremost, we do really want to get into the final. That's a big reason why we invited you and all the other American women whose episodes you all can listen to. But first off, let's go to the beginning of this trail season. You participated in Mont Blanc Marathon, Sierra Zanal, Eiger 50K at one point. I'm sorry, I forget if you did anything before that. I think those were the first couple.
That's all.
And
Yeah.
you had incredible performances there. I mean, Mont Blanc was stacked. It was basically like an
Yeah.
OCC preview plus Golden Trail final. Like that was the most depth I've seen at that race. You came out with a really strong fourth place. Sierra Zanal, I mean, there's no year where that race isn't separated by seconds, first through 20th, and you had a
Mhm.
seventh place there. And then eventually, oh, and before that, you had Iger 50K, which maybe was to get a spot for OCC this next year.
Mhm.
That all
Yeah.
being said, you did decide to take a pause, and that still was like such a good year. Most people would keep going that, and that would be their best year ever. All due respect, you know. And we're just curious, like, why you chose to take a pause. Who was in your corner during that decision process? Because I thought that was a really cool decision. But yeah, dive into that.
Yeah. I think like the biggest thing, yes, I like comparing my results this year to last year was like, okay, this is not going as well, but the big decision for me was just like how I was feeling. And ever since I transitioned from the ski season, I had just kind of been like fighting myself and fighting my body, and I was not so smart when it came to the spring. And I essentially like had my last ski race, and 2 days later I went to running camp. And so yeah, and part of that was I had this bike crash and got a knee injury, and then super rushed in back into running because I was like so eager to like get into racing, and that was kind of what led to my Mont Blanc performance. And um I was able to train super well, and I think in the moment I was bummed with that race because I thought that like it's easy just to look at the result, but when I looked at my lead up, and then it was decent just with how little running I had done. But then I think it was kind of since June, I just like kept trying and trying, and I was just in this like weird medium place, and I was feeling super bad in training. And I then did Eiger, which I ended up winning, but there's only so much a result can do. And when a result is because you like earned it or like were best. And I still was that day, but I by no means felt like super rewarded at the end, because it was like that took every ounce of energy in my body to get to that finish line. And that was kind of the final. I wanted to give Sierra Zinal a go because I still was holding out faith. And I think I was, yeah, kind of, I wasn't feeling good leading up to it, but you always kind of think that adrenaline or whatever is gonna just take over and you'll be fine. But I remember like looking at my watch at Sears and all, and I was like, okay, so I was done last year, and I have like 5K to go. So yeah, that was a super mentally tough one, just because like basically 2 minutes into the race I knew that okay, this is not going to be great, but I'm definitely going to try. And I think that's something with running, is they're so long, and so you kind of always wait to see, because you can come back from starting off super flat or whatever. But finishing that race, I think I maybe wasn't outwardly like this race is going to be the deciding factor for me, but I had like going into that race, I knew that if it wasn't going to be, if I wasn't feeling good and I wasn't back to my normal feelings or level, I needed to like change my plans. And so it almost made the decision super easy when like, it's hard when you kind of had an okay experience or felt okay, then you just kind of want to keep trying. But that race really showed how like tired I had been. And I think like my team manager at Solomon and my ski coach and some teammates, like it was kind of all just like no one really needed to say anything, but yeah, okay, you need to take a break, because I never took a break after skiing. And there were just added things that like injury, training too soon, and like biggest thing, just never taking a break. And I think last year I was pretty lucky in that I didn't necessarily take an intentional break, but it all just worked out. And so then it seems like, oh, well, that always will work then. And this year it didn't. And so I kind of decided after series and all to take the ski running break that I needed in March and April. And it was honestly like I thought I would be super bummed and unmotivated, but I think I needed it so much. So I decided at Sears and all that, okay, I'm not gonna continue with Golden Trail, but if in a couple months I feel back in shape and I feel good and I feel normal, then I'm just gonna go to the final because I want to try one last time. And it doesn't matter that the overall is not my goal. Like I just want to prove to myself mostly that I can be good again and at least just feel good in races. And so that was, yeah, I think I just felt like I was going to end a little bit on too much of a sour note if I just completely gave up. But I knew it was going to be way too much to try to like go to the US, do those races, and then 100% sacrifice my ski season too. And I think, yeah, if I was only a runner, I probably would have just pushed through the whole season and seen where I ended up at the end. But I knew that, okay, this is not going to be my running year, and I don't want my ski year to also be like this. So, yeah, stepping back was kind of the only decision to make. And yeah, I'd never done that before. So I hadn't thought of it how you mentioned that others would think that was awesome and just kept going. But for me, I think it wasn't as much about the results, but more about how I had been feeling. And I was on thin ice.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, we've all been there once or twice at this point, and you're still so young in the sport, and Danny and I are as well. But I know I have had a season like that, and I'm sure Danny has as well, where it's like you keep pushing and hoping that you can get past like whatever's going on, whether it's mental or physical, and it just gets deeper and deeper, and you're like, whoa, shit,
Yeah.
how did I end up here? But I mean, it's a good lesson, whether you are, you know, a skier and a runner or just a runner, to be able to like step back and be like, okay, I didn't give my body the respect that it deserved. And so now it might be the middle of the season, but we're going to do it anyways. And so I think that's a very like mature point to be at in your career, even if it doesn't feel good. And so I'm curious, did you feel like it was a more mental or physical barrier? Like, were you getting like blood work done to see kind of what was going on? Or just like, do you think it was just not having enough time in between seasons?
Yeah, I did do a lot of testing because I was like I said, I wasn't like horrible. I was just feeling super mid for so long. And so I kind of eventually thought, okay, maybe this is just how I feel now. And so like every test I took was just totally fine. And so I think it was a combination of mental but still physical, just because when I did take that break and I started training again, I mean I got COVID when I took my break. So when I started training again, I was like, okay, now I feel really bad. But after a few weeks, I finally like, oh, it was such a good feeling, because then I realized that basically since May, I've been doing the training, but on a little bit too low, like recovered body or whatever. So there
Just
was
like
no, yeah.
going through the motions almost.
Yeah, so yeah, like, and even I think like the knee injury I had in the spring, it was never super serious, but I don't think I like took into account. Like I basically didn't run for 2 months, and I think
Which month?
something we can get to at the final, but yeah, I just realized that my ski training and running, like they're maybe not as aligned. And so not running for so long really made the running feel extra bad, I think.
Yeah. And I do want to say too, I purposely um, worded that question like that because that is often what we're met with, even on tough days, is because again, we've all been there where everyone's like, but you should be so happy. Like, that's still such and such place. And
Mhm.
so I really wanted to highlight that it is this, like a very specific mindset of, I think, people who are chasing true excellence or high performance excellence, that it's like, yes, I know that's still a good performance, but I know what it's supposed to feel like, and I know what I'm capable of. So thank you for falling into my media trap, I guess, of answering that the way that I was kind of expecting you to answer it, is like, yeah, fourth place at Mont Blanc is incredible. And you won the first year or the previous year too, but you knew, I'm guessing like even then you probably had a feeling of like, that didn't feel potentially as good as I thought it was going to feel.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think like now I've become much better at like not making the result determine how my race went. I think before, and especially at Mont Blanc, and now I'm like, okay, Mont Blanc wasn't so bad, even though I didn't feel like, now I've had worse races where I feel really bad, and that felt a lot worse. So yeah, I think it's, you have to find a balance between the two, and that's how I like, even winning Eiger, I wasn't that psyched because I didn't feel, it wasn't fun, and yeah.
And that one's at altitude too, which
Yeah.
probably wasn't extra fun. But yeah, but I don't want to put words into your mouth. Thank you for answering those questions.
Yes.
I do want to like touch on one more thing before we transition forward, is you did talk about like having ski season, then immediately going to team camp. And I'm curious, like, with you being a dual sport athlete, how much of the decisions of your year are yours versus, working with the Solomon team manager, your ski coach, etc.? Like, who's helping you build out this kind of like more holistic view?
I think that's like, no one's really telling me what to do. They're letting me decide. And I think I've been grateful for that. But in a way, I'm realizing I actually might need more guidance, because when I go to Sierra Zinal and I'm talking to my team manager with Solomon, he's like, yeah, I mean, like, this sucks, but I kind of saw it coming. And that's not like, I've never felt pressure from Solomon that like, oh, you have to do Golden Trail this year because it's Solomon. And like, my ski coach is super supportive of running because he knows it's important to me, and like wants me to do the races I want to do. But then, so yeah, I think I need more like, yeah, I always want to do everything. And so I think maybe a couple years ago I could, and now I can't. And so I I've it's hard to have these two separate worlds, because it's not like they're telling me opposite things, but both are just so foreign to each other, and they don't know how to put the two together. I don't know how to put the two together. And so I'm making a lot of my own decisions. And yeah, I think this year I realized that I need to get more input, and I'm not super invincible as I thought I was.
In the grand scheme of things, it's only one season though. And last year maybe like because it was so new, it just like worked. But to do it 2 years in a row, all of a sudden your body
Yeah.
is like, oh my God, we haven't had a break since, like November of 2022 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, like, is there anything specific that other than rest, because we know that maybe Sophia needs a little bit of time in between each season, is there anything else that you feel like you need to balance between the two sports?
I think like this year, even last year, like running, I've always said like skiing is my priority and it's more important to me, and I'm going to put all my energy into skiing. But like the past couple of years, I've totally transitioned and been like running and skiing. I want to do best at both. But my training has always been, and like this year too, has always been for skiing. And I thought it wasn't that I didn't like prioritize running, but I just thought it kind of worked good enough. And now I realize that the effort I put into skiing and getting better at skiing, I've never done that for running. And like last year it wasn't like all luck, but it was lucky that I didn't put in so much effort for the results that I got. And now I'm like, okay, I'm kind of getting the results that I deserve for how much effort I'm putting into running and getting better at running. And so now I'm just like, I'm excited. Like, it's weird I never thought I would be like excited after having kind of like results that I am not psyched on. But I know that I haven't put in the work I've needed to. And so you kind of know how much potential you have then when you've are kind of starting from ground zero. And so yeah, I next year I know I want to make a bigger change in that I have much more specific or running specific training, and I do run very little, and I've racing the final, racing like even Mont Blanc, I've realized there's a difference between like good skiing shape and good running shape. And like I decided to go to Mont Blanc and the final because I was in super good shape. But the second I started running, I was like, oh, okay, there's a difference. My legs can't do this, and I like can't use my capacity because my body is not trained super well for running. And so it's definitely going to be a challenge to figure out how I can not sacrifice skiing ability by running more, but I know I want to run more. And like, yeah, I think it's kind of like I'll figure that out. Right now I'm focused on skiing, but I think I only have a ski coach, and I don't know if it means that I'll get a running coach, but um at least like have a couple months that are basically focused on running only, because I've never had that. And I think that's the biggest thing I've been lacking.
Well, I feel like I just that's crazy. That's you are going to be even more of a weapon, considering you've never done
Maybe, I don't know. I'm gonna try, but
yeah, but I mean, I think it's just like a really good example that we do learn a lot from the failures, like, you know, in quotes for this one.
Mhm.
And it does take setbacks to like help us realize how much attention we want to give certain parts of our lives. Um, and so that's really cool. And like as an outsider, I mean, MK and I are going to have an end of year episode, and we really want to highlight like mental health this year because I think there's just been so many great examples of taking pauses from the sports, and you being one of them. And so, yeah, I just like, as a fellow competitor, friend, and just like fan, I just think it's really cool that you've had this season of growth and can't wait to see what you do next year. But before we dive into next year, this year, like you said, you took your break, and then you came back. You didn't just choose some small race in Norway. No, you chose the Golden Trail World Series final to make
Yeah.
your return, which was really, really exciting to see because both you and Sarah, Lauren Gregory was like kind of already participating, but we were both really excited, especially for you and Sarah, because you're two folks that like know what level it requires to do well at
Mhm.
these races. And especially when you have people that are fighting for the overall points. What did you, I mean, obviously you chose the final, like you said, because you felt ready.
Mhm.
But what did you think of the whole final experience, not, you know, being in the chase all year for the overall rankings?
Yeah, I think like for everyone, or like everyone talks about the final as the overall is like you go there for the overall. And for me, I didn't feel like it was worth doing like an like it was a very much personal attempted comeback. Like I just want to do this for myself, and wasn't gonna get so excited, I think, if it was just like a random race, because I really did want to test myself. And um I mean, the final went to show that it was probably the most competitive race I've ever raced in, but like that to me is much more rewarding. And I think there were so many takeaways from doing that final. And the reason I wanted to go was just to have like an actual test. And like I could have done a race in Norway or just a local thing, and probably would have had a bigger confidence boost out of it. But that wasn't exactly what I was seeking. I think I wanted to go. I think like I even wouldn't have done another Golden Trail like regular season race, because I wanted it to be the event, and where everyone was gonna be, because I that makes me more motivated about racing.
Well, you guys were all running incredibly fast. Like watching the videos, especially on that like single track portion that looked kind of slippery and rocky where Judith ended up falling. Like
Mhm.
you guys were moving so well. It was crazy. I'm curious, like, what were your thoughts on the course and like the flower format this year, having done last year and this year?
I think last year I hated it. I did not, and I was like, please do not change all of Golden Trail to this, because it was, I don't know, for some reason last year I was so focused on the fact that I kept passing the finish line, and I was like, this sucks. I just like, and I think I didn't have a great final last year, but I think one thing that made it very successful this year was that like you actually got massive crowds, and the whole like reason for them doing a flower format paid off. Like last year it was like 4 other people were watching, and it didn't feel like super hyped. And so I was like very surprised that I actually enjoyed it, and it kind of like a lot of the races we do that are point to point are just like a grind. And here you are like, okay, well, I've got 5K to get back to there. And then you just have like, it feels shorter almost. And that's pretty nice. And I think like the course itself was way faster than I like thought it was. There's not many races where you're like 100% running and you're like sprint running, because it was never super steep up or down. And that's where, yeah, like you have the women who are well-trained runners probably doing best, because they like it's, you need to run technically well. And that was like, yeah, I think I haven't really raced any race like that. And but it was fun because it actually felt like a trail race still, even though it was like super fast. But yeah, I think it was interesting to like compare, I guess you could say, to my, like I had perfect races up until the final last year, and when I finished 6th here, I was like, okay, I definitely like my legs were super heavy and it wasn't 100% my best, but I did way worse last year and I was 3rd. So like the level just went crazy high. And I think it's cool that you can like, instead of like, oh, you have to be 1st or 2nd to have a good race. Now it's like, okay, if you're top 10, that's legit. And yeah, I think it's more like rewarding to do well then. But yeah, that was unique and humbling.
Yeah, I mean, we were only guesstimating based on the profile and Strava segments, but yeah, you guys and the men too just ran that course way faster than I thought it was going to be run. Um, and even just the clips, like it just seemed like everyone was technically savvy. Like everyone
Yeah,
could run. So it's not like you could bank on like, oh, I'll catch them on the downhill. It's like,
right.
no, you're all going to probably be next to each other. But yeah, seeing like you said, see more crowds and stuff, I think helped to that flower format.
Yeah.
Um, but as you mentioned, like the level is insane, especially this year's final. And we are curious, like what you think of, because American women showed up, and when you
Mhm.
like look at all of their past resumes, Anna Gibson, Lauren Gregory, Ali Ostrander, we're all at the Olympic trail or Olympic
Right.
trials this year in 3 different events, which is, you know, I honestly don't think there's ever been a year of trail where that's happened. We
Mhm.
have you, who is a former Olympian, Rachel Tomaszek, multi-time All-American in track, just all of you guys crushing across the board. So what is your take on the rise of American women in these shorter distances?
I think that was like a cool thing. Like I remember on the prologue day, I was like, okay, that was okay. But then you look at the nations and you're like, oh, well, that's legit. Like we're way better than any other country. And that's like, yeah, I don't know. It's different because we're not like none of us are on the same, or maybe a couple people are on the same team. But yeah, I think that like immediate and like instinctual pride thing in the like that, like it's, I'm obviously racing for Solomon and I want like we're trying to have all the Solomon people do well, but um I think because like skiing is super country based and like you're racing for the US, it's cool to have that transfer in running, just because like the US are so dominant. So it's like a statement every time. Yeah, I think that was like a couple takeaways I had from the final was like, okay, I didn't have my own best result, but both with Solomon and the US women, it was like you could still get excited about something else. Um, and that makes it, yeah, just like racing more fun if there's bigger things happening.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is that none of you guys have been running trails that long. Like
Yeah.
probably, like I think Lauren Gregory made a junior team at some point when she was in high school for the US. Um, and Rachel Tomaszek has been doing it for maybe 2, 3 years now, but like it's cool. It feels like fine a long time coming, at least for the
Mhm.
American women, because none of us grew up trail running like a lot of the
Right.
Europeans have been doing it since they were young. And so it's like it's so cool to see so many American women in the top 10 of these races, top 20 at the
Mhm.
final. And I had the same feeling like when I was racing Mammoth, where I was like, I got passed by a couple American women, and I was like, hell yeah, keep going, let's do this.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of
No,
pride.
that's cool. Yeah. I will say though, like I I hope it doesn't just become like this is nothing to do with like the US, but just like that track runners are kind of dominating now. It's like, okay, now because I've never like I've run on a track like twice in the past 5 years. So it's like shit. If that's what it takes now, like I don't know, like that just means that we're gonna have to all work harder. But yeah, it's definitely like that was kind of a big discussion at the final this year that like especially with the Kenyan women and just that I think the transition from being a track runner and learning how to run trail is like you do it a couple years and then you'll be good. Um, so yeah, I don't know what it's gonna turn into, but it's definitely like, okay, we gotta step up. I gotta step up my speed or something because there's like definitely like a dominance of road track people now in the top 10.
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, it's been a big discussion on social media too, is making
Mhm.
courses that are still have that essence of like true trail and mountain
Mhm.
running. And it's always going to be fun to have fast courses. I think you should have those to like balance it out.
Mhm.
But making sure that, yeah, it's staying true to the sport and it doesn't like skew more towards long trail cross country where you're like
Yeah,
on the golf course and it's hilly.
Yeah.
I was
Um,
gonna say it feels like the transition, like when Danny and I were in college, like cross country was freaking hard, and
Mhm.
now because of super shoes, like they're definitely like transitioned more to like golf
Yeah.
course type stuff,
Uh-huh.
and it's so you still want to have the trail races.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, also, I mean, look at Judith. I don't think she does roads. She's still
No, it's true.
crushing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, once we learn what the calendar is next year, maybe we'll have another episode because there's just this continued like rumors, speculation, don't like where this sport is going. But until the public knows, we can't really discuss that.
Yeah.
But we do want to, I mean, this is kind of opposite our podcast, but we're also curious. Like you ran Iger 50K. Is
Mhm.
OCC in the cards next year? Are you running further?
Yes, I will do OCC next year.
Sick. Nice.
Yeah.
Will that be like, I mean, maybe you don't know yet, but will that be like your one kind of longer race for the season, and then will the rest of them be still kind of more in the faster, shorter range?
Yeah, I think the plan is to do Golden plus OCC. But I'm sure I'll do like I'm fairly certain Zagama is in the Golden Trail circuit. So um I'll do that, which is long, but nothing beyond those two.
I, that would be really nice if it still was in there. It's a classic. And
Yeah.
yeah, you were going to do that this year, but you ended up, I
Yeah.
think you're still injured. That's right.
Yeah.
Um, okay. And last portion, kind of focus more on this kind of duality, balancing the sports. 2026 Olympics, right? That has to be on your mind as well. But
Mhm.
you heard it here, folks. She's going all in on running. Uh, so how do you kind of foresee that like all in running kind of this next year and then transitioning to that? Do you plan on trail running in 2026? Are you even thinking that far ahead?
No, I am, because I'm like, right now I'm ending this running season with like, okay, super fired up. I have to change a lot and do so much more running next year. And then I'm like, oh, right. That's the season I trained for the Olympics. But um I think something I have thought about is like I can very well like dedicate the first few months, like the spring, early summer, like to running, and that's not gonna harm like my skiing at all. And it's not like I'm not gonna stop roller skiing, but I've kind of realized that like the skiing mentality has always been like, okay, May 1st, you just gotta start grinding and roller skiing like 30-hour weeks, and that's just for me at least. I don't need to do that. I can start my like ski focus in August and September, and that's fine. And so I think it actually like the Olympics are important, and especially compared to last time, like I actually want to do well. And so I'm gonna have to think about that when I'm like changing in my training for running, but I think it's definitely possible. And yeah, I realize that I have to give certain things up a little bit more than I have, but that is gonna make me more successful in both. I just have to like, yeah, learn that the hard way.
I'm not a ski coach, but I imagine that like doing the run training over the summer will translate better to skiing than the other way around. Just because like for running, it's like you obviously have this massive capacity, but you have to like also get the pounding in. Whereas like with
Yeah.
running and skiing, it's like you're still training your capacity. You just have to
Mhm.
like also roller ski a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think I 100% like I've trained super well for skiing the past couple of months, and then when I did the final and I did the prologue, and I was just ruined after that one race. And I like I wanted to do both because everyone was doing both, and then I was like, okay, maybe this is affecting me a little bit more than everyone else because I can't. I like my legs were broken, and that's where I've just thought that like shape is shape. So if you're fit, then you're gonna be fast running. But it's like it is kind of it goes both ways because like strength and like those types of things are super important for skiing. So if you're only running and you're not training your upper body, and like then you're also kind of screwed in skiing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's mostly just like doing both, but I definitely need to do more running, and that won't hurt my skiing.
A bit more balance.
Yeah.
When do they choose the team for the Olympics?
It's not like running at all where you have like official trials. It's basically like the 2026 season, like we start in or 25 in November. And basically you just kind of like race, and
Is it like a
there's
point
criteria,
system
but
almost?
yeah, it's it's not subjective, but like you have many tries. And they just
Yeah.
take whoever's the best like a couple weeks before.
Oh, wow. So it's not like they're like accumulating all this data from the last few years. It's like in the moment who's in
No,
the best
it's
shape.
just that season. I think they have like certain results or like a top 6 or top 30. Like the thing is we have quite a few spots for women, and so yeah, it's not 3 people that get to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a bit more subjective.
Is
Yeah.
that
Like
is that stressful at all? Like, do you know which races they're kind of taking into consideration more than others? Or are you kind of just guessing? You're like, gonna try my best.
Yeah, it's like you have to look at what events are at the Olympics. And so, like, for instance, there's a 10K skate race. And so for me, that's like my best bet at making it. And so I'm just going to try to do, it's not like they look at certain races differently, but it's making sure that you're doing well in the races that you're good at. And basically, we have 4 starts for each race. And so if you are just one of the top 4 women, then you're probably set. But yeah, it's like I
Dang.
would say it's probably less stressful than like you have one
the
shot.
one shot.
Yeah, yeah.
That's terrifying. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
yeah, totally. It's always a surprise. It's like never who you think it's gonna be. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
sick. That's our team.
Right.
Check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Like, oh,
US
whoops, she
trials are
tripped, now she
always,
can't go. Yeah.
an insane time of year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, last thing, just curious because there is a couple of races left this year. And then from what we gather, I mean, it's probably safe to say Golden Trail is going to start early again next year. So between now and say April, do you plan on doing any races?
No, I think that was what was maybe the beginning of my end was that I was gonna try to race in Asia for Golden Trail in April, and I'm gonna now not do that. So I'll wait until at least May, end of May or June to race.
Cool. Well, we're glad you went to the final because it was fun to watch you race again.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I saw your posts and I know it wasn't exactly what you hoped and dreamed of, but we still think you're amazing. So
Thank you.
Yeah, it's like a fun chapter in the Sophia book. It's like, oh, she came out.
Yeah.
Oh, she take a break. Is she? Oh, whoa, she's coming back. Oh, sick. But yeah, I
Like my
mean, it.
cryptic Instagram, no one really knows what's going on in my life.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like she's in San Francisco. Is she going to Headlands? I don't know.
yeah.
No, it's fun. But yeah, again, it's just from the lowest of lows comes the highest of highs, and
Mhm.
we learn from these harder times more times than not. And yeah, and sometimes that's what takes you to the next level is having these results that you're like, that was good, but not great. So we are excited to see this Sophia next phase, not Sophia 2.0. You're still the same Sophia, but new tools in your toolbox. She's gonna train for running, folks. This is exciting. This is really exciting.
We'll see.
All right. Well, this has been the Sub Hub podcast brought to you by Free Trail.